Hello? Hi. I can hear myself, so I guess you can hear me too. First of all, thank you for being here. And we would like to walk you through something which apparently is very boring, but is necessary. And we would like to talk about the F-GAZ regulation, which is currently in place in the European Union and in Great Britain. And we will try to give you the highlights of what's needed to know about this regulation. So first of all, who is interested by this regulation? Every company that is somehow dealing with HFC refrigerants, hydrofluorocarbons, whether they are manufacturer of gas, blender of gas, or manufacturer of equipment that is using these refrigerants, this is something which is of interest with them. And my company is Navis, and we have a very large experience of dealing with the regulation because we've been in strict contact with the government in the European Union. On a personal level, I've been working with them. And we are also very much in contact also with the British government when it comes to the implementation of the F-GAZ regulation there after Brexit. First of all, this is dedicated to all the Turkish players that somehow have to deal with the European Union and with Great Britain. And it's very important to understand that there are two separate regulations in place. That's why you see the EU F-GAZ regulation on the right and the GB F-GAZ regulation. This is because when the United Kingdom decided to leave the European Union, they also decided to adopt the same regulation for the United Kingdom. But because of political and geographical restrictions, there are some hiccups and some fine things that is important to understand. Why we are talking about Great Britain and not United Kingdom? The United Kingdom is made by 4 regions: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, while the regulation is only affecting England, Scotland, and Wales, which all 3 together are part of the Great Britain. So the regulations is now split into Great Britain, so everything that goes into England, Scotland, and Wales needs GB quota, and the European Union, EU27 member states, plus Northern Ireland, is another regulation. And these are 2 complete separate regulations, even though they play by the same rules. And that means that if you comply with one regulation in Europe and then you move your products into Great Britain or the other way around, you still need to comply with the local regulation. A little bit of a timeline. The F-GAZ regulation was introduced in 2015 in Europe. It was published in 2014, but entered into force on the 1st of January 2015. And for the first 2 years, it only applied to the importers of bulk gas. What is bulk gas? It's the refrigerant that comes inside cylinders, ton drums, ISO tanks, not the one which is inside the equipment. The requirement for the equipment kicked in 2 years later, in 2017, and then in 2021, two separate quota systems were created. Now, on the right, you can see that there is a graph, and this graph is showing the phase-down curve that has been decided by the European Union. Every 3 years, it's reduced by a certain percentage, and as of today, the regulation is planning to push down the import of HFCs into the European Union by 79% by 2030. So 2024 is going to be the next year, and you will see a cut of 14% of the available quota to import HFCs inside the European Union. This is actually something very important to know, because depending on the activity that you are doing for your business, you need different types of quota. The quota is released by the European Commission or by the UK government to the companies that are importing gas, not in equipment, but in bulk. So the quota is released by the government. It has 1 year validity, so it's valid from the 1st of January until the 31st of December of each year. And if it's not used, it expires, and it cannot be rolled over. This quota can only be used by the importer of gas, as I said. It can be transferred to another company to import gas, and it cannot be used to import equipment. So if somebody thinks, okay, I can apply for the quota, get the quota, and then import equipment, no, it doesn't work like that. The part related to the equipment is the one that you see on the right side of the screen, and it's called authorization or delegation. So the authorizations is the type of quota which is released by an importer of bulk gas to importer of equipment. So when a company that is importing gas has some availability of quota that will not be used to import gas for themselves, they can authorize it to an importer of equipment. So under this point of view, it's very important to understand that while the quota is given by the European Commission or the United Kingdom government for free to the importer of gas, it has to be purchased from them, because they will use this value to recover the profit they would not be making by importing gas. The difference between the two is that the authorizations and delegations never expire. So it's once they are on the account, you only consume them based on your imports, and if at the end of the year you have a leftover, it will be carried forward into the next year, and so forth and so forth. And authorizations have a peculiarity, because they can also be transferred to another company as delegations. They can be delegated. So the difference between the two is that the authorization gives you the flexibility to transfer them as delegations to another party. The delegations must be used by the undertaking. Sorry, very important. If you have authorizations and delegations, you cannot import bulk gas. Okay? We are now focusing on what we see as the key aspects of the regulation. And the most important one is for everybody to understand that there is a different quota system covering Great Britain, because not everybody has yet digested the fact that UK has its own system, and it's completely separated from the European one. The other point of attention is that because there is a revision of the European F-GAZ regulation in place, it's very important to act now, not to have bad surprises in the coming years, because there are major changes coming, and I will explain about them later on. Why UK is a big point of attention? Because this is the country that is issuing the highest fines to companies that are importing in excess of quota. The startup fine, if you are importing without quota or if you are exceeding your allowance, is £200,000. So if you make a mistake, £200,000 is there. Then there is another penalty, which is if you have the quota but you made a mistake in the reporting, so you reported after the timeline, you can get a penalty which goes from 1,000 to 10,000 pounds. But there is another penalty, a third one, which is even more worrying, which is 25 pounds per ton of CO2 equivalent in excess of the allowance. So if a company has imported refrigerant for 5,000 tons and does not have the quota to cover these 5,000 tons of CO2 equivalent, they get a fine of 125,000 pounds. So that's why it's very important that people understand that without knowing how it works, they step immediately into a danger zone, either directly if they are importing in the territory, or indirectly if their clients are importing and they are not aware of this important step. Now, what are the steps to take into the quota system for Great Britain? Company must register on the HFC registry. They need to have the right type of quota for the activity that they are carrying in their business. So quota to import bulk gas, authorizations or delegations if they are importing equipment. And the quota must be on the account before the import starts, not after. Because otherwise you are illegally importing. So necessary step is register, get the quota, start the import procedure. This is the sequence of events. And if you are working with clients, you need to make sure that your clients are following these steps, because otherwise they may be caught and fined, and they may not be able to continue with their business because their fines are quite high, as you can see. Some companies simply had to close because they could not afford to go on after they've received these fines. There is an article which says that, well, it's there for everybody to check. One company got 1.2 million pounds penalty because they were importing without quota. We can help you in the process because we know how it's done. So either talking directly to you or talking directly to your clients, we can make sure that they are on track and that everything is done properly. Now, this is the part related to the European Union. I said that there is a new F-GAZ regulation that is kicking in. There is an ongoing revision, and the final draft of the regulation was published on the 18th of October, so it's very fresh. And there are big changes coming. The first one is that categories which are now excluded from the quota system will be included. The most important one is the MDI. Those are the meter-dosed inhalers, the sprays for people who are suffering from asthma to when they have an attack and they need to breathe. They use these sprays to open up the lungs and being able to breathe. This will take away from the quota system 10 million tons of CO2 equivalent, which is not peanuts. The other point that I was already mentioning earlier on, instead of 79%, the target for 2030 will be moved to 89%. And the quota, which is now released for free, there will be a fee to pay of €3 per ton of CO2 equivalent. This will automatically be reflected in the prices of the refrigerants and in the price of the quota, authorizations and delegations for the companies that need to buy it for the equipment. And last but not least, the restrictions in terms of type of products based on the GWP will become even more strict. So today you have a certain level of restrictions starting from 2025, 2027, it will be much worse. So certain products that you are importing today, like the standard split systems, they will probably not be manageable in the future unless they work with the low GWP refrigerants, which is not the case today. So R410A equipment will probably be impossible to be imported into the European Union. There is the link to the regulation. So in case you want to see what is going on, you can click on the link and go through the very lengthy regulation. It's in all European languages. Unfortunately, it's not in Turkish, but it's there. And quota strategy. For companies that are importing equipment, it's important to understand that because of the changes in the regulation and the changes in the curve becoming steeper, it's important to make sure that you have the quota that you need as soon as possible, because in the future you may find difficult to procure it and at the same time very expensive to do that. So if you look at the prices, now we're ranging between 17 and 22 euro per ton of CO2 equivalent. To put it in numbers, if you are importing an air conditioning unit which has inside 1 kilo of R410A, you need to consider 44 euro on top for the quota needed to place it on the market in Europe. So it's not peanuts. We have made an analysis, which I will show you later on. Prices have reached 42 euro per ton in the past, when the first cut of the quota happened in 2018. Then they have gone down, but now they are skyrocketing again because of what is happening in the industry after the announcement of the new F-GAZ regulation. And this is just to give you an idea of the price range. From 42 euro, it went down to 2 euro, and now it's going up. And this red curve that you see going up, it's expected to go much higher than before. And in a conference, the European Commission said that they would be very happy if the price reaches 100 euro per ton of CO2 equivalent. It's on their website, it's everywhere to check. Because with 100 euro, people will simply not be able to make a profit by selling split air conditioning units, with R32 even though the GWP is lower. So in case you are importing bulk gas and you're facing difficulties in Europe, we can help you, because Navis is not only a consulting company, we also have our own quota. We are listed as an incumbent company, which means that the quota is assigned to us based on the past year's activities. And we are listed as incumbent both in the European Union and in Great Britain. So we can supply quota in both environments if it's needed. And we have put in place a procedure which is called shared import procedure. So if one of your clients needs to import gas and they don't have sufficient quota, we can help you. We can help your client. So we have a lot of expertise, which ranges 360 degrees in terms of helping companies to comply with the F-GAZ regulation. We can help them by providing consulting, so explain how the regulation works, how to perform the yearly reporting, the yearly auditing, because there's a lot of administration behind the regulation itself. We can help you with the quota if you need it. And we can help you also with the refrigerant if it's necessary, because we can bring it to you if you can't import it yourself. So we are already working with probably the biggest name that you can think of. They all work with us. Some of them are actually also here. We can make sure that every company that needs to deal with the F-GAZ is fully compliant. We have offices in the European Union, in Turkey. We are based in Ankara. We have offices in Great Britain, clearly in the US, and we are opening also in other regions. Wherever there is the F-GAZ regulation, you will find Navis office to fall back on if you need any help. We are able to deliver in excess of 5 million tons of CO2 equivalent to our clients, which basically gives you the safety net that you need if you need to import your equipment or gas. But this number will fall down heavily next year when there's going to be the cut of 14%. And we are actively engaged with the European Commission, with DG Clima, which is the European governmental body looking after the F-GAZ regulation, with DEFRA, which is the Department of Food and Rural Agricultural Services in Great Britain, and we are working also with the APA, Environment Protection Agency in the US, because also in the US there is the quota system. By the way, you already have a quota system which will kick in next year for the importer of bulk gas. Not yet for the importer of equipment, but the effect will be that the price of the gas in Turkey will rise. So we always suggest to have 3 years quota on the account, especially if you're importing equipment, because in this way you hedge the cost and you feel a little bit safe and you don't risk running into penalties, especially in Great Britain. And we can help you for whatever need you have. We are the first and one company who has created an application to convert the amount of refrigerant which is inside the shipment into tons of CO2 equivalent. It's very easy to use. And the same application will show you the prices which are currently on the market in Europe and in Great Britain. So I invite you to download it and to play with it. It's entirely free, but at least it will give you an idea of how it works. There is a lot of explanation also in the application, so you can see what each single type of quota means in case you have doubt. What is the quota? What is the authorization? What are the delegations? And so forth. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much for being here. I think that we closed on time. Is there any question? You can ask questions in Turkish. I have my personal interpreter here. Any question? One there.
Hello. Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first is that you mentioned there's a €3 levy next year for European quota.
For 2025.
For 2025, okay. Do you see the GB quota system following that? And then conversely?
Possibly, because they have been talking about introducing fees for the quota system in general, not only for the quota. In Great Britain, there is a principle that when an officer, a governmental officer, is performing a service which is not public, and by public it means needed by everybody, just like, for example, health and safety and so forth, that service has to be chargeable. We had a meeting with the Environment Agency in Great Britain 3 years ago, and they said that there will be a fee to register on the HFC registry, there will be a fee to apply for quota, there will be a fee for quota authorizations, delegations, so quota transactions, and there will be a fee to submit the reporting, there will be a fee to submit the audit. Plus, most likely there will be a fee to apply for quota. So the UK system is most likely going to be more expensive than the European one going forward.
One more question. You mentioned expense. If I've understood correctly, the GB is very keen to apply fines for non-compliance, but it seems less so in Europe. How do you see that evolving?
They're starting to do that. For example, in France, a company that is importing gas in excess of quota, bulk importers, the managing director is liable to go to prison. So Each European member state is looking into the fines, each one in a different way, but they're all getting there. So this is a very tricky regulation. You may not know about it and everything goes well until they catch you, but when they catch you, it's really, really bad. You don't want to be there. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other question? We actually are ready to give gifts to people who make questions. If you want to ask questions, there are some gifts waiting for you. Okay? Then I think we can wrap it up. Thank you very much.